You think you know your neighbors. You think your home is your safe place. And you believe that if anything was truly wrong, you'd see it coming. But the truth is, monsters don't always live in the woods or haunt old houses. Sometimes they live right next door. Sometimes they smile at you in daylight and watch you when you least expect it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Night Terrors. Tonight, we're diving into a chilling trio of true inspired horror stories, each more disturbing than the last. A casual conversation around a campfire that unlocks a terrifying past. A house sitter who uncovers a secret they were never meant to find. And a loving husband who discovers something truly horrifying through his home security feed. These aren't ghost stories. These are real fears pulled from the shadows of everyday life. So before we start, turn down the lights, double-check your locks, and maybe don't watch this one alone. If these tales leave your heart racing, hit that like button. Got your own horror story to share? Leave it in the comments or send it to nightterrorsinbox@gmail.com. You might just hear your nightmare told right here. Now, lean in, because what comes next might make you see your home and your neighbors a little differently. The Man Beneath Unit 3. A friend of mine, Jake, told me this after we went camping last fall. We were swapping creepy stories by the fire, and he just went quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You ever live next to someone who felt wrong? Not loud or aggressive, just wrong, because I did, and I think about it more than I should." I moved into that apartment on the east side of Lincoln Ridge, an old complex near the freeway with walls thin enough to hear your neighbors sneeze. One bedroom, ground floor, cheap carpet, old pipes that groaned like they hated you. Not exactly glamorous, but for me, it was peace. After years of couch hopping, roommates, and sleeping with one ear open, this place was supposed to be my reset button. My first solo apartment. No parties, no chaos, just quiet. It stayed that way for about 8 months. Then, on a cloudy Thursday morning, the guy in Unit 3A moved in. I only noticed because his moving van blocked my car. I knocked on the truck cab and waved, trying to get their attention. That's when I saw him. He stepped out without a word, didn't apologize, didn't even blink at me, just stared. Not angry, not confused, just this flat, unreadable look. He looked maybe late 40s, pale, wore a beat-up black hoodie despite the summer heat. Gloves, too, full-on leather gloves, in July. His boots looked like they hadn't come off since '99, triple-knotted and scuffed to hell. When I introduced myself, he only gave a name, Carter, then walked inside without another word. I didn't see him for a while after that, but I heard him. First it was the soft clinking of metal, then dragging sounds, like furniture scraping across tile. Always after midnight, always slow and deliberate, like he didn't want to wake anyone, but wanted them to know. At first I wrote it off. Old buildings make weird noises, right? But this was different. Every night almost like clockwork. Metal against stone, low grinding scrapes, and that electric buzz in the air like being too close to a frayed wire. A week in, I saw the first fire. I stepped onto my patio and smelled it. Burnt paper and something chemical, sharp and acidic. Not wood, not food. I peeked around the divider, and there he was, crouched over a rusted steel drum, feeding it pages like he was performing a ritual. His face was lit by the flame, and he had this intense focus. Devotion, almost. Not rage, not madness, like the fire was whispering back. I must have stared too long. He turned, locked eyes with me, and without a word, lowered a lid over the drum. The fire disappeared. He vanished inside. That night I barely slept. The quiet was worse than the sounds. My imagination did the rest. A few nights later, he started dragging something inside his unit. This wasn't the usual noise. It was heavier, like steel being dragged across stone. Always at 2:13 a.m. exactly. I started writing it down, not because I thought I'd need it, but because it felt like the kind of thing that might matter someday. Then came the vehicle. It was a black SUV, no plates, tinted so dark it swallowed the streetlights. The kind of thing you'd see in a spy movie right before someone gets erased. It pulled up around midnight and 3 men stepped out. Identical suits, no wasted movements. Military, maybe, or something worse. They didn't knock, just walked in after the door creaked open on its own. No loud voices, no gunshots, just soft footsteps and the occasional thud, like someone adjusting furniture. They stayed 2 hours, left as silently as they came. This happened 3 times. The 4th visit was different. It was a Friday. I had just sat down with dinner when I heard the low purr of an expensive engine. Through the blinds, I saw a silver car, a Bentley, maybe. Out stepped a woman in blood-red heels and a man with a jawline like a magazine cover. They didn't knock, either. Carter opened the door before they reached it. That visit was loud, angry voices, footsteps stomping, a muffled argument where the woman only spoke twice. But when she did, it cut. Then, silence. A calm exit. All 3 walked out like nothing happened. Carter even smiled. That night was the last time I saw his lights on. Then came the smell. It started as a faint rot, like a fridge unplugged for days. By the 2nd day, it was unbearable. I reported it, but no one came. Management doesn't move fast when you're paying under-market rent. Saturday, when I came back from work, the lot was lit up. 2 cruisers, an ambulance. That SUV was there again, parked near the bushes, yellow tape around Carter's unit. I watched from the sidewalk as they wheeled out a body bag. One officer, tall, tired, told me they'd found a deceased male inside. No signs of trauma, no forced entry. Natural causes, he said, like it was routine. But it didn't feel routine. I told him about the scraping noises, the SUV visits, the fire, the people in the Bentley. He nodded, took notes, didn't look surprised. Said there'd be an investigation, but it wasn't being treated as a crime. Some people just live strange lives, he said. What I didn't tell him was what I saw through Carter's sliding door the night those fancy people left. Just a glimpse. A metal table, bolted to the floor, with thick canvas straps hanging off each corner, stained with something dark. The kind of table that doesn't come standard in apartments. They cleaned out his unit within days. Quiet men in gloves, no news crews, no public notices. Just a moving crew, and then nothing. But they never took the table. It stayed in the center of the room, covered with a tarp. One afternoon while the crew was gone, I slipped onto the patio and peeked in. The straps weren't leather. They were military surplus, blood-stained. The floor underneath had grooves worn deep from something being dragged over and over again. Carter didn't just die in that apartment. He did something there. Weeks later, I saw the SUV again. No flashing lights, no cops. It pulled in just before dawn, idled for nearly an hour, and drove off like it had all the time in the world. I tried finding his name online, checked obits, property records, even inmate databases, nothing. Carter didn't exist. Eventually, a couple moved in. Newlyweds, sweet people, hung fairy lights, had a baby, planted herbs. That apartment looked human again, but every now and then on warm nights, when their patio doors left open, I swear I still hear it. That same dragging sound, and I wonder what's beneath their floors. The Man by the Fence. So I was talking to my cousin Trevor one night, and he told me something I'll never forget. He said, "There's a difference between feeling safe and being safe. Most people don't realize they're not both until it's too late." At the time, I didn't think much of it. I lived in a quiet cul-de-sac just outside of Cedar Hollow, Ohio. The kind of place where the mailboxes are painted, the lawns are manicured, and neighbors wave from their porches with mugs of coffee. I'd been there with my wife, Emily, for 13 years. No kids, just us and our little corner of peace. But peace is a fragile thing. I wasn't paranoid, I swear. But when our neighbor across the street had their car broken into, and then 2 weeks later someone slashed the tires on the Andersons' Jeep, it made me think. We'd built a life here, poured years into this house. I wasn't about to let it unravel. So I installed cameras, a lot of them. 12 in total. 8 outside, 4 inside. Motion sensors, two-way audio, real-time access from my phone. It was overkill, sure, but it gave me peace of mind. Emily actually thought it was funny. She'd dance in front of the cameras, blow kisses at them, sometimes hold up signs that said, "Miss You," when I was away on work trips. It was our weird version of love notes. I work in logistics, supply chain monitoring, energy distribution, the kind of stuff no one talks about at parties. I'm used to systems, things that run predictably. So when Emily started texting me during my morning calls, I'd check in. She knew the routine. One Thursday morning, mid-May, I got her usual message. "Perfect weather, yoga time, you watching?" I opened the app. There she was, already on the mat, out in the backyard. She wore that sky blue set she loved, hair tied up in a knot, her smile catching sunlight. I watched her stretch, sip my coffee, and tried to ignore the numbers droning on in the conference call. Then something shifted. It was tiny, barely a twitch in the corner of the screen, just above the fence line. A shadow, a flicker. At first I thought it was a bird or one of the neighbor's cats, but the camera was still, and the shape didn't move right. I tapped to zoom. That's when I saw him, crouched low behind the garden shed, a man. He was wearing cargo shorts and a ratty black t-shirt. His face was half hidden by the shadows, but his eyes, they were locked on Emily. Wide, focused. And then I saw his arm move slowly across his body, like he was reaching for something, or doing something. I dropped my mug. Coffee splattered across my laptop. My ears rang like I was suddenly underwater. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I texted her. "Hey Em, could you check the kitchen cam for me? Just need to test it. Head inside a sec." She took a second to reply. "Can it wait? Number now, please." I saw her hesitate, glance at the sky, and then roll up her mat. She walked toward the sliding door, the man in the bushes not moving, just sinking deeper into the shade like some predator playing dead. As soon as she stepped inside, I hit the mic. "Lock the doors, now, and call me." She heard it in my voice. She didn't ask. She bolted the back door and dialed me. "What's happening?" she whispered. I told her, every awful detail. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just nodded, crouched in the hall closet, and stayed on the phone. I called 911, told them someone was in my yard, watching my wife. Cops showed up fast. No lights, no sirens, just 2 officers, flashlights drawn, moving slow across the yard. I watched them through the cameras, Emily clutching the phone, whispering updates. They spotted him, pulled him from the bushes like weeds. The guy was disheveled, his shirt stuffed in one hand, pants partially unzipped. Didn't say a word, just stared at the ground while they cuffed him. Emily didn't come out until they gave the all clear. Even then, she wouldn't go near the backyard. She clung to me when I got home, trembling like a leaf in a thunderstorm. She didn't want to talk about it. Therapy helped a bit, but not enough. She started pulling all the curtains shut before dark, jumped at every knock on the door, even asked me to remove the cameras. I didn't. I couldn't. They charged the man, some guy named Donnie Withers, with trespassing and indecent exposure. The footage made it airtight. I handed over access to the system, gave them timestamps and clips. They said he'd likely get a restraining order slapped on him, too. But here's where it gets worse. After the arrest, I kept going back to the footage, watching it over and over like I was trying to solve a puzzle. That day, during the arrest, something kept bothering me. In the top right camera feed, 25 feet down the fence line, there's this shape. Another figure. It's not Donnie. This one's taller, stockier, wearing something dark with a hood. He's already there when Donnie crawls into the yard, just standing completely still. Then, as Donnie starts creeping closer to the house, the second figure shifts behind the tree line, barely noticeable, but it's there. The cameras don't show him entering, and they never show him leaving. I showed the footage to the cops. One of them, the older one with the mustache, just sighed, said, "Could have been a trick of the light." But he wouldn't meet my eyes. Emily still doesn't know about that second guy. I never told her. Some nights when I can't sleep, I sit in the living room and cycle through the camera feeds, just watching, listening, waiting, because I have to know, if Donnie was the one we caught, who was the one we didn't? The backyard eyes. A friend of mine, Jake, told me this after we went camping last fall. He said, "Ever install security cameras? Not because you're scared, but because you want to be prepared." Jake had that tone that makes your skin crawl before the story even begins. He wasn't the paranoid type. Worked in logistics for a big power company. Systems, structure, and predictability were his world. So when things started feeling off, it wasn't just gut instinct. It was calculation. He lived in this quiet Midwestern suburb where the grass was always a little too green and the neighbors waved just a little too long. His wife, Rachel, loved the place, gardened every morning like it was her religion. They didn't have kids, just roses, rows of them. He told me she talked to them like they were alive. They'd been married for over a decade, and Jake trusted her more than anyone. Still, after a few small crimes rattled the neighborhood, stolen bikes, slashed tires, someone spray painting smiley faces on garage doors, he wired the whole house like a bunker, 8 exterior cameras, 4 inside, full audio, remote access from anywhere. It was overkill, but it made them both feel safe. Rachel even made a game out of it, waving at the cameras, making goofy faces while cooking, or holding up handwritten notes like, "I miss you," while he was away for work. It was cute, he said, like their own reality show that only he could watch. Then came May. Jake started feeling uneasy, like something was sitting just outside the reach of his thoughts. Rachel still sent him little messages, still did her morning yoga on the lawn. But one day, when he got a text saying, "Heading out to the backyard for some sun. Hope you're watching. He opened the camera app during a meeting, just out of habit, and felt his stomach drop. There she was, stretching on her mat in the early morning light, same as always. But then he noticed something at the edge of the frame, a twitch of movement, barely noticeable, tucked behind the wooden fence near the tree line. He zoomed in, froze. It was someone, a man. Crouched low, practically buried in the bushes, his body barely visible, but his face was angled right at Rachel, wide-eyed, mouth open slightly. Breathing hard enough that you could see his shoulders rising in jagged bursts. Jake said it was like time stopped. He knocked his coffee over but didn't even feel it. The boardroom around him faded into silence, like he was underwater. He didn't want to panic Rachel, so he texted her, "Hey babe, can you go check the kitchen cam for me real quick?" Harmless enough. She texted back, "Can it wait?" He wrote, "Please just go now." On the feed, she hesitated, then finally stood up, brushed the grass off her legs, and walked toward the house. Jake watched as the man in the bushes didn't move, just slunk deeper into the foliage like some animal pretending to be part of the earth. He hit the mic on the kitchen cam. "Lock the door, right now, and stay on the phone with me." Rachel didn't question it. She called instantly, and he told her everything. Her voice went from confusion to breathless fear as she dropped the blinds and double-locked the back door. The police showed up within 10 minutes. 2 cruisers, no sirens. The officers were quiet, professional. One moved toward the bushes, gun unholstered but not raised. The other stayed by the door, nodding at the camera. Jake watched the entire thing unfold like it was a crime documentary, only it was his backyard. They pulled the guy out by his arms, middle-aged, dirt-caked, shirt half off, zipper down, eyes empty. Didn't say a word. Rachel was in the bedroom closet, whispering updates to Jake as she cried. The guy was arrested for trespassing and indecent exposure. Jake handed over all the security footage. They even took time-stamped stills. Rachel couldn't go in the backyard for weeks. Even when she started gardening again, it was only when Jake was home, and even then, she always glanced at the bushes every few seconds, like she expected something to crawl out of them. The guy, his name was Clay, apparently, was someone they'd barely noticed. Lived 2 houses down, always wore cargo shorts and polos tucked in, like he was headed to a middle school assembly. Never talked much. His wife, or maybe it was his sister, left town the same week. No goodbyes, just gone. The cops told Jake that Clay had been on their radar for a while. Nothing serious they could stick him with. But this time they got him. But here's the part that made Jake stop talking for a long time around the campfire. The part he didn't even tell Rachel. He kept re-watching the footage over and over. Something didn't sit right. At minute 3:12, just before Clay moves behind the bush, there's a flicker, 25 feet down the fence line, barely visible. But there's someone else, a second figure. Still, watching. He couldn't make out a face. Couldn't see how they got in or how they got out. And no matter how many times he watched it, they never reappeared. The cops didn't notice. Rachel never saw them, only Jake did. To this day, he still doesn't know who it was, and he never took the cameras down.